welcome to the Lisa Show's Council of Moms. I'm Lisa Valentine Clark. I'm so glad you're here. The Council of Moms is a place where we take a break from our kids to talk about our kids. Am I right?
So you are correct.
And I do want to remind you, you may be listening, you may be watching. We are on YouTube. We are also wherever you get your podcasts, and Spotify, Apple, all the places where we live. Unfortunately, our kids are disappointed. We are not hosted on Roblox. It's not yet, but fingers crossed. Thank you for being here. I'm excited, and I'm excited to introduce to you our council today. Actually, they're going to introduce themselves. I'll get the ball rolling. Lisa Valentine Clark. I have 5 kids. They are on various stages of development, but they're all baby adults. Mm-hmm. And that's how I see them now. I don't see them as like little kids, teenagers, young adults. They're baby adults. And also here today we have...
Hi, I'm Marlie. I am in the baby stage. I have a 3-year-old, so a three-nager, I'd like to say, and a 9-month-old baby girl. And so I am new to this thing, the motherhood, parenthood thing. And it's been a roller coaster, but it's awesome. It's so fun.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Kylie England. I'm also in the newbie parent stage. I have a terrific 2-year-old, and then I have a little boy on the way at the end of May.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I am Brandalee Bluth Streeter, and I have 5 children. My oldest, we have a 24-year-old all the way down to an 8-year-old. So we span the gamut, and I feel like I ride that wave, right? Adult children and still young ones in the home, and I really love it. I really love the large, big family, and I love it. It's great.
I love it. Well, thanks for being here and for talking so openly. Before the show started, we talked a lot about the value of having a council and the Council of Moms. And so I appreciate your time and being here. So let's just dive into it. You know, throughout the course of doing the Council of Moms, I get a lot of people who message me privately and say, you know what you should talk about? You know what I wonder about? And I'm like, please tell me. So if anyone is listening or watching and thinking, oh, they've probably talked about this or this is dumb or whatever, it's not. Message us over at The Lisa Show. We're on all the socials. We read every message. And so if you are subscribed to where we are at the Council of Moms on YouTube and also, on Spotify and BYU Radio, we have these discussions and we continue them outside. So please submit the questions and the things that you want to talk about because we love it. Mm-hmm. And it starts really good discussions. I get really good ideas about it. And here is one that I got actually out in the wild by talking to someone who listens to the Council of Moms. And she said this: I would love to know how to help my kids navigate conflict in healthier ways. Right now, we have a lot of red-faced screaming. Not ideal. So I think we can interpret this question in a lot of ways for a lot of different age developments. But handling conflict is a huge part of parenting. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I want to ask the council. How do you handle it? How do you better model it and teach it? What do we got?
Yeah. I can tell you, I think it starts almost with siblings because my kids have a lot of siblings. That relationship and kind of how to share, how to start, kind of starts even into their baby toddler years and trying to help them understand, okay, that's important. That toy's important to so-and-so, and you can share for a little while and we can time it right. But as they grow into relationships with friends, I think that can kind of really be a seamless relationship that they grow. And they can get a little bit stronger in intensity. Mm-hmm. And you kind of have to understand where they're coming from. So I don't know, talking to my older kids and understanding their relationships with their friends or even work starts their relationships with work associates. But anyway, I think the younger aged kiddos, we can start it young. That relationship.
Yeah, I think that's where they know whether all little kids will lash out, right? Scream or hit
cry.
And cry. And I think I've changed my reaction to that kind of conflict, over the years of saying, okay, by taking a step back and thinking, okay, Are they hungry? Are they tired? Is this the 100th time today that they've had a conflict, or is this the first time? You know, that kind of like knowing the time and the place. But it's always going to be an issue in all of our lives. Like that's one of those things, like this is a fundamental in parenting, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Like when will you not deal with conflict?
Yeah.
Just yesterday, one of my kids, I'll be careful because I don't have their permission to use their names right now for this particular, but they were like, well, this other sibling, I just filled up the gas with the car that they share. And that's my gas that I put in. And they're going to think that they can just use it. And they always, and they never. And I just stopped my kid and I said, I don't want to get involved.
Oh,
And maybe that's not the right thing to do. But like, I'm just thinking my most immediate conflict, because of their age, what I've taught them, the rules have been like laid down, and so I feel because of their age mostly that I'm not going to get involved with their conflict. But a lot of things had to happen before then. And again, I'm not saying I think this is the way to always handle it, but it was really, really hard for me not to get involved in the conflict, to get
try to
really
fix
upset,
it.
try to fix it, and try to say, okay, you do this and you do that. But it's not appropriate at their age. They're both legal adults.
Yeah.
And it was time for me to take a step back. And I'll tell you, it is hard.
Yes.
yeah.
It is hard.
I can't even imagine.
I still know what I want to say, and but I'm biting my tongue
That's
Like,
awesome.
I'll say it here today, instead.
right now.
Something that I like to think about, there's a TED Talk I watched by Claire Canfield. He's a USU professor, and he talks about conflict as being a petition for connection. And I think when you look at conflict as a whole, like as an adult, you know, when I have little things with my husband or whatever, it really, down at its core, is usually a petition for that connection. Like we're just disconnecting somewhere. And so I think being able to model that for, I have little kids, right? So being able to model that with them when they're really little is really important. Being able to look at it, okay, how can I, like, what is this kid really needing? Kind of what you were saying. And how can I let them know that, like, they're safe, they're loved, it's going to be okay, because some sort of, like, lizard brain has taken over in their mind, and they're thinking about other things that, you know, they can't get out of. And so it's our job to kind of to help them get out of that. And
Ooh, yeah, that's a good point.
So.
Because that's what we model when they're younger, right?
yeah.
I think the tit for tat, where you were kind of talking about, like, your child was suggesting that my gas, right, I filled it up, it is a really dangerous road to go down.
Right.
Right. And, you know, going back to kind of, if you're a child and you're saying, well, I get 5 minutes with the toy, then the other child gets 5 minutes with the toy. If everything was equal like that, it's really not what is reality. Right. And so trying, even like as your siblings, you know, my children, like the older sibling, I'm like, you can be the bigger person. You're the older sibling. It's okay that you would give that up when the baby needs it, or right? So I think if we kind of can help our older children understand that maybe it's not going to be fair, maybe it's not going to be the same, and then helping them understand why. If we have the understanding of people's, where they're coming from, then I think we do a little bit better. Our kids maybe can cool down in the moment a little bit faster, instead of it being something that they're really going to get uptight about. But it never really works when you're like, I get this because I did that.
Well,
It's
because life's not
always
fair.
equal.
I hate to
right?
break it
It's just
to
not.
everyone listening.
Yeah,
And to set your kids up for that is to set them up for a false world.
it really is.
I mean, I was just thinking about, like, my relationship with my spouse, my husband. I mean, it's never going to be a perfect 50-50. You do these exact things, I'm going to do these exact things, and then we're going to feel fair and equal.
Yeah, good
That's not
point.
how it works. That's not life. So
I think that's a really important point too, because our kids watch every little thing we do and absorb it all. And the relationship that you do have with your spouse is one that they have a front row seat. So they see and they're watching how you react to conflict in that situation as well. Do you avoid it? Do you dive into it? Do you solve it? Are you
Blow up.
curious about it? Not. Like they will answer all those questions for you.
yeah.
I think, too, conflict is a normal part of human life. Like, we all have to deal with it. We're not going to deal with it perfectly every single time, but trying to learn from every experience that we have with conflict and make it better and better, and apologizing when we don't do it right, and not feeling like so much shame and guilt when we don't handle conflict very well. Because like this mom saying, she's like, how do I do this? Like, it keeps happening. It's horrible. I feel horrible. Everyone feels horrible, but conflict is normal and it's healthy and it's an important development milestone for everybody. And so just being patient with yourself as you're trying to navigate that and learn and say, okay, this didn't work last time. And this time we're going to try this, and it's going to get a little bit better, and not holding yourself to a standard of like, I need to know how to handle every conflict situation with patience, ease, poise. Like, that's just not going to happen.
Well, and that's a great way of modeling to our kids, right? When we do make the mistake, that we say, I'm sorry, Mom didn't do that very well. I lost my cool. But being able to go back in, whether it's several hours later or in the moment or maybe years later, and going back and saying, I'm really sorry, I didn't handle that very well. They also can, understand that and use it later in life, maybe to apologize or say, we're not going to do things 100% of the time correctly, even though we know how to do it, right?
Yeah.
Even though we
We're
know
human.
we should do it a certain way, we just are human. And being able to say, I'm sorry, I didn't do that right.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I think that if this were my friend and I were talking to her about, when she says red-faced, like so mad, I my mind like goes to those times where you're just like, a kid has thrown a toy, had a
Getting that
tantrum,
car
they're
seat, buckling it up, right? In the
Yes.
store or something.
That and I am wondering how to, like, if that were my friend, what I would really say, like advice, solidarity, the whole thing. And I think because of where I'm at life, I would think about all the different transitions of parenting, because I think that's where we get stuck. Like you were saying, Brandalee, like, we know what to do. You should be. This is how we resolve conflict. But Emily Taylor, I've had her on my show. She's a conflict resolution expert before, and a good friend. And I like what she says about conflict resolution, of like, you go in, like you were saying, not being surprised, but being prepared that, conflict happens in every relationship. But you can use conflict as a way to strengthen your relationships. And I think if we see it like that, then the way that we approach it at different parenting stages becomes a little bit more effective, So are you dealing with a toddler, and what are they really asking? Oh, they just want to know that, like, they can't get away with that, or that you're there to safe and to teach them, what is a little kid? How is that a little kid going to an older kid, a teenager, a young adult, by knowing that you are there to help them, like you were saying, Brandalee, model the correct behavior, that it's like a consistency, that no matter what they do or say, that you're going to be there. I think that can go a long way too.
I love
That there's nothing that you can do or say that will, like, exclude you from the family. You know?
And that your love is not conditional either. Like,
Yeah.
even if they make a mistake, even if they do something really horrible, you're just going to love them anyway. I think that's what they're seeking when they are acting out and, like, feeling really upset or red-faced, like this mom was saying.
Yeah.
I those moments, even just like me growing up, feeling those moments, you just feel like you're so out of control. And so that connection of just saying they still love me, they're still there, I think that'll go a really long way for sure.
I'm wondering if any of you can, like, remember a specific time when you helped one of your kids resolve conflict, or it was you resolving the conflict and you thought, okay, that was good. That was actually a win. What were those moments like? What do they all have in common?
So I had a couple of challenge. We had a part family, so I'm a stepmom, right? I've got two kids that spent half the time with their mom and half the time, and those transition days were really tricky, and especially when they were younger, and they were so brave and so courageous. These kiddos are so amazing. But there would be, just that hint of like, it's a transition day and things are different at dad's house than they are at mom's house. And so
That's so hard. I really want to point that
Yeah.
out. Like that kind of transition
it really
is hard
is.
for adults. So imagine what it's like for kids.
So having, we had some boundaries, that our kids knew were there, but we also had some flexibility with what, they could manage and handle. And each of them, it was a boy and a girl, and they handled them differently, even, amongst themselves. They were not the same. So as parents, we had to kind of understand where we needed to be flexible and where we needed to kind of give a little more attention, a little more love, a little more understanding. And I think as parents, kind of leaning into what the needs are of our children on their level, at their age, depending on what their needs are, is really important. So giving a specific example, we had a situation where they were kind of struggling. One child in particular was struggling with that transition. And I remember just going in and saying, just take some time, right? Just take the time that you need. Don't come out. Don't even, worry about anything, and take the time you need. And there was almost kind of like a decompress, right, on that transition day. Yeah. And we just kind of got in the habit of that. Just decompress yourself and what your need is. And then as they, were able to work through it, they were fine. And they kind of grew out of it as time went on, but needed the time when they were younger. And that was important to recognize. And as parents, if we can, I have a great friend who says, seek to understand before we, charge in. And that happens with kids. It happens with business associates. It happens with, friends. If we can seek to understand before we charge in, I think we can handle it a little bit easier.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels like it could be applicable in a lot of different situations.
Absolutely. I mean, I have a 3-year-old who is trying to find his own independence, and good for him. I'm excited for that, but it definitely...
I always tell myself, this is developmentally appropriate.
Right.
This is what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
This actually means that they are growing and developing as a human being. I remind myself that a lot. Developmentally appropriate.
That's good.
Yes,
I need to remember that for sure. I had a moment kind of recently. My kid has, within the last few months, turned 3, and he is really trying to find some control and autonomy. It's such a weird transition where you're like a baby doing everything for them, coming into like, okay, now I can like say things, I can decide for myself. And I've been trying to give him, choices and things, but there was a moment when he was really upset and he was just saying no to everything so loud, the red face thing. And I was just trying to control and just be like, you need to do this kind of thing. Just please comply, and the way that I was reacting didn't get any sort of different reaction from him in that situation than it had in previous reactions from me where I was calmer. So his reaction did not change, okay? So that made me kind of step back and say, okay, if he's not going to change the way I react or the way that he reacts based on my reaction, I can control how I react in this situation. And I don't want to react like that. I don't like that. I don't like how I feel after I react that way. And so if there's really no change, then it's no skin off my back, right? So I'm going to react the way I want to. Hopefully, I'm going to give myself a little grace when I make mistakes. But I have found that my reaction eventually gets the direction I want eventually, he might be really upset in the moment kind of a thing. But as long as I stay calm, as I stay soothing kind of thing, then eventually he'll get there. He'll be able to kind of calm down and get to that point. But I just realized it doesn't do anything. It doesn't help. I don't like it.
Yeah, you've tried the other way. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like you just start yelling and screaming, like it.
Yeah, and you're like,
it just escalates.
I don't like myself like that, so I'm not going to do that. So yeah.
Well, and then you're joining in on the conflict too. Right. You're like, I feel conflict inside myself if I am now screaming and raging as well.
Right.
That's not going to help them be able to calm down and finally be able to feel the way you want them to feel and to work through that conflict. And so I think it really comes down to like controlling yourself. And that is way easier said than done. That is so hard.
Like, it's like, yeah, we did it. We solved it. Just control yourself, Brandalee.
Especially
But I know the better way.
especially if it's like the 20th time that day, right? And so you're like,
Yeah.
I was
Or
good.
the 20th year.
Yeah.
1 and 2 I have was
Right.
good.
You're like, I did really good for the 19 times.
Yeah.
And this time,
Why
like,
won't you do
I'm done.
what I say?
I'm done.
yeah. And it is really interesting. These little people, they have such big personalities. Like
Right from the get-go.
Yes.
Yeah. It doesn't change.
No.
Nope.
Yeah.
And you're like, you're so small. How can you be so large?
It's developmentally appropriate. It's developmentally appropriate.
But same thing with Marlie, my little girl. She is just totally figuring out who she is. And so she wants what she wants when she wants it. And there is no,
And you know what?
If
That's going
and
to
or
serve
buts.
her well in life.
yeah.
That's the thing. You
I
don't want
want
to
her
crush
to be
that,
that
of
way.
course.
No. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, but we need to just pull ourselves together for 1 minute.
Yeah.
But I found for me, the biggest thing is that if I'm reacting hostile to her own big emotions, it's going to make it so much worse for both of us in the long run.
It's so true. And I just want to acknowledge that, like, and I love that you're sharing so much, and I know that we're on different parenting stages, and this is why it's so validating. That same feeling of frustration but I haven't changed, my, desire and love for them of like, I just know you the best. And if you just do what I say, it's in your best interest because I love you and know you the most. That feeling has only intensified as my kids have gotten older. So this is really validating for me to hear. I remember having a really difficult, probably one of the most difficult conversations that I've had with one of my kids. And they were concealing something about their life. And I found out, and in the moment, they wanted me to be where they were, which was months down the line of acknowledging, accepting that this is the reality of how they want to live. And they were demanding that I get on board right in that second that I'm finding out.
Oof.
And that is a lot of,
You need to process it first.
and I'm processing and feeling lots of emotions because it's a choice that I wouldn't make and that I don't want for them. But and we had a really great conversation after when I said, listen, part of being an adult is you don't get to dictate how people react. And you can't just snap your fingers and say, this is what I think, so you should think that right in this second, right now. I am just finding out about this and I need a minute.
Yeah.
Just like when you were a little kid and I'd
gave
say,
you-
you need a minute for a minute. I need a minute.
Yeah.
And I'll process this and I will get on board, but you can't demand that it's going to be
Instantaneous.
instantaneous
I just
as
feel
well.
like that builds connection.
And you know what?
love.
It did. It built
really
our
does.
relationship. I said, you
Yeah.
can't demand how I react. I'm going to react because I am an independent person with my own life experiences and thoughts and beliefs, just like I acknowledge that you are too. So give me a minute. And of course, the love is unconditional.
Yeah.
Of course. But we had more years to where I had proven that, right? So that we could both trust it.
We never stop being moms, right? We're going to be moms forever. And I have this unique situation where I live. I share backyards with my mom. I'm the house behind them. And so, man, she is still parenting. She's the best mom. Don't get me wrong. She is the best mom. But I mean, still to this day, when I walk in a few minutes late to church, she's like, and I know, and I go, I've made the choice to not get angry at my kids or myself when I'm going to take a few extra minutes in the morning because that's not how I want to arrive to church, even if I'm going to be 5 minutes late. She knows that now, and I've explained it to her, so we don't need to have that problem. But I think we're always going to be mothers. We're always going to have a little bit of expectation on our kids, and I don't know that that's entirely that we can void ourselves of that, right? But we can have that deepened relationship with them that you were sharing, Lisa, where we can say, okay, I want to get there. I'm going to get there.
I'm going to get there.
Give me
But give me a minute.
yeah, because we're
Just
just
give me a
never going to
minute.
stop loving our kids, never going to stop encouraging them, never going to, and that goes with sometimes a little bit of like, come on, I know you can get there. Come on, I'm going to pull you along the way too.
Yeah.
That's part of mothering.
I think we all know that conflict is inevitable.
Yeah.
And that, but it's like the long game. I think when my kids were younger, I thought, I got to solve this right now. We're going to solve the problem. 5 minutes with this toy and you think I'm going to solve it right now. And that's good conflict resolution when you solve it. And I have changed my mind on that. And now I think that like conflict and bumping into each other is a natural part of any deep, meaningful relationship. And you're playing the long game.
Yeah. When we know more, we do better. We know it better, right? I think as our kids grow, they do the same because they know more, they understand more. They're awesome.
Yeah.
Being kids is awesome. Being a mom is awesome. We're all doing it the best we can.
And I think it's just important to remember relationships really are built on imperfect moments.
Yeah,
Just like you need a minute, your kid needs a minute too to figure out whatever they're going through and feeling and processing. And so just remembering that at the core of everything, like the relationship that you're creating as a mom or as a parent, it is going to be built on so many small, tiny, minute details. And it's okay if they're imperfect. That's how we build beautiful relationships.
Amen.
Amen. I think we solved it.
Did we?
There you go. You're welcome.
I think this is why the Council of Moms is here. And honestly, too, as a wrap up, I do want to say that when I've had these hard things, obviously I loved to process with my partner, and now I no longer have a partner. And so the Council of Moms and being able to process with people who love and are invested in not just you, but your children and their success as well, that can help you when you're taking a minute, has really absolutely positively affected the way that I approach conflict with my kids. So I just wanted to another shout out to the Council of Moms.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thanks for being here, and thanks for listening to the Council of Moms.